I'm Michael Bungay, Stania here, ready to rock and roll on another webinar. This webinar, 4 lessons learned from creating my new book. Here it is, my shiny new book. I'm so happy about it. You can actually see a little picture of it down on the footer there. But here's the truth, this is a pretty boring title for a webinar, right? So here's the better title perhaps. What Kenny Rogers, Gollum, Sir Jonny Ive and the All Blacks can tell you about finishing up your big project. So let's jump right into this. Little connection if you'd like to do this. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only Michael Bungay Stania on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is kind of my social media platform of choice. So if you're watching this, maybe you'd like to connect with me there. I would love to connect with you. So find me out, connect. That would be fantastic. And of course, just to talk a little bit about the book. It comes out February the 29th. Thecoachinghabit.com is where you'll find all the details about it. It's had lots of nice people say things about it. Dan Pink being one of them. Brene Brown, David Allen, Dave Ulrich, Nancy Duarte, other big wigs and nice people. If you want the Twitter version of what this book is about, it is the 7 essential questions that you as a busy manager and leader can best use so that you increase your impact and you work less hard. What's not to like about that? Okay, so let's get going on the webinar. Enough of the promotional stuff. So I'm going to ask you a question to kick us off. I ask this question at the start of all of my webinars. How focused do you plan to be? I think this is about a 20-25 minute webinar. And I'd like you to bring as much focus as you would like to the webinar. So you need to give yourself a score between 1 and 7. 1 is low. In other words, you plan to be almost entirely distracted through this whole webinar. You've got your gadget out, you've got your email, you're doing your email even now. You're actually on the phone as you're doing your email, as you're watching the webinar. So it's chaos. 7 on the other hand, you're bringing calm and focus and zen-like concentration to this webinar. You close the blind, shut the door, put on noise-cancelling headphones, whatever it is for you. I don't mind what number you give yourself, the choice is yours, but I do want you to pick a number and then adjust your environment so that it gives you the ability to focus as much as you want to give yourself. If it's a 2, whatever that looks like, if it's a 6 or a 7, maybe put away your gadget, put away paper, give just a pen and a paper, it's all you'll need. And let's rock and roll through this next 25 minutes. Okay, so the 4 lessons. What's the first lesson? Well, we get it from Kenny Rogers. This is a pre-weird facelift Kenny Rogers, and Kenny provides an important part of my musical heritage. For some reason, the very first record my parents ever bought me was a Kenny Rogers record. I have no idea why, but I did love The Gambler. And you may know that song because it's got this classic line in it. You gotta know when to hold 'em. You gotta know when to fold them. And of course, he is talking about cards, but this is true for anything you do. When do you stay and see it out? When do you walk away from it? And this had a lot of relevance for me as I wrote this new book, because the previous 4 books that I put together and created and written, honestly, they were fairly quick. I had an idea, I could see how it would work. The first draft was generally okay. We go through various other iterations to get it to where it wanted to be, and then we get it out into the world. So it was intense, but it was relatively short. Not so with The Coaching Habit. God, this almost killed me to write this book. I've written 4 bad versions of this book over the last 4 or 5 years. I think I'd crack it, I'd have a go at it, I'd show it to people, they kind of go, that's not very good at all, is it? And there were times where I was desperate to walk away from this book and go, look, there's got to be something better for me to do. Anything, drinking heavily is better than trying to write this book at the moment. But I stuck with it. And that's not always the right decision, it really is, do you stay or do you go? But here are the 3 questions that helped me stick with it and make a difference, I think, and get to the point where I got this book out in the world. The first question I asked myself is, what happens if I don't complete this? And actually, one of the interesting things was to find out that actually nothing much happened if I didn't complete this. Nobody misses a thing that doesn't show up. And the business, and that's one of the reasons why I'm writing the book, is to help elevate Box of Crayons. It would have kept going along just fine. So it did mean that I could think to myself, I could walk away from this and it wouldn't be critical. I hadn't made a contract with anybody. I wasn't obliged to write it. So what that meant is I had to get clear on the second question, which is, so what's the why? Why would I stick with this? If you like Simon Sinek, you'll probably know his book, Start With Why. I'm recording this in December. And I've just read the recent Harvard Business Review magazine, and actually there's an interesting article there from the founder of Tom's. Tom's is the shoe company that when you buy a pair of Tom's, a free pair goes to some needy person. And he talks about having to reconnect to his why because he'd lost his way a bit with Tom's, and the power he found and the excitement and the regeneration he found in connecting to the why of the work that we do. And actually, when I thought about my project, the why was really clear. I think it will help grow our company and boost our profile, and sure, I like to have a new book out in the world, but actually I'm really committed to try and, here's my personal mission, infect 1 billion people with the possibility virus. And actually in this book are some really practical, useful tools to help do the possibility virus, practical coaching skills for pretty much anybody. And it really connects to my mission of the impact I want to have in this world. So that meant I had a really strong why to stick with this book. And then the third question here, what's the opportunity cost? You know, when we talk about great work at Box of Crowns, the question we say is at the heart of great work is, if you're going to say yes to this, what must you say no to? And that's what opportunity cost is. If you're going to complete the project you're on at the moment, what are the things that you might be missing? And when I weighed up the opportunity cost for doing this felt like the most important thing for me to be doing. There wasn't anything that I was sacrificing that I wouldn't willingly sacrifice so that I could write this book. So as you think about your project and the thing that you're working on, so what happens if you don't complete it? What are the obligations? Are you making up expectations that people have for you around completing this thing? Because sometimes we do that. What's the why? And if you're not sure, find a way to make that why kind of resonate for you if you really want to get this done. If you can't find a why, maybe you need to walk away from this. And then what's the opportunity cost of everything you could be doing to move your thing forward? Is this the best thing to be focused upon? Okay, there's Kenny in his pre-facelift glory. Let's get to the second point of the second lesson, the second inspiration. And this comes from Lord of the Rings. Huge fan of the books. I love the movies as well. My friend Mark is actually the Orc General in one of the movies there, which is fantastic. And if you like the movies, you'll recognize this scene. It's Gollum leading Sam and Frodo across the dead marshes on their trip to try and drop the ring off in the volcano of Mount Doom. And one of the things that happens in the scene, and apologies if it's a spoiler, but you know, it's been out for 10 years now, so you know, if you haven't seen it now, too late. Frodo wanders off the path through the dead marshes, gets sucked down, faces oblivion until he's dramatically rescued. And as you're creating your project and doing your thing, you will find ways of being, there are always going to be people pulling you off the path, distractions that take you away from where you need to be going. And you know, I certainly felt this. When I was writing this, when I started doing it, I assumed it was going to be published by the same publishing company that published Do More Great Work, because they'd done a great job with that and I had a great relationship with them. But it actually, we never quite found a way to work together on this. And I would show them a manuscript and they go, yeah, you know, we like it, but we don't like it. And we love it, but we don't love it. And why don't you write something like this, although we don't know exactly what we want? So I go back going, oh, okay, they love it, but they don't love it. So I'd write another version of it, thinking this is what they're going to love. And then I show it to them and they're like, well, we love it, but we don't love it. And I'm like, I want to kill myself. And honestly, that whole conversation really pulled me off the path. I was kind of getting sucked down into the mud. And I then had this moment where I went, I need to get back on the path as to what I had imagined this book to be. And I had a really clear idea of it, and actually wandering off the path really helped me get clear on what the real path should be. And it had really helped me stay on the path. Now, let me show you a quote that I love, I use all the time. And here it is, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And that's powerful. But here's the twist I want to give you for this conversation, which is all feedback is wrong, but some is useful. So you need to figure out as you get feedback, because you'll always get feedback from people, what's useful and what's less useful. What do you want to listen to? What do you want to ignore? And behind that is the question, so who do you trust? And you know, there are people I discovered that I went, you know, I can really trust you to have my back, to speak the honest truth, the hard truth sometimes, to give me the encouragement I need, to give me the push I need. You know, it's like Marcella, my wife, my mastermind group, Jen and Molly and Michelle and Mark and Eric. Jill Murphy was a huge influencer here. A bunch of people who were really good at keeping me on the path. So knowing that you're on the path, knowing that there are shiny lights pulling you off the path, who do you trust to keep you, support you, encourage you, give you the feedback to reconnect and get back on the path that you're on? Stay on the path. That's the Gollum lesson. All right, what's lesson number 3? Okay, so some of you will know this man, Jonny Ive. He's the Apple guy, the design guy. You've got the triumvirate at Apple. You've got Steve Jobs, of course, Tim Cook, the current CEO, and Jonny Ive, the design guy. And design is really important. I mean, he's made design so essential to the way we experience the products and the services that we have. And for me, design is what turns information into wisdom. You know, information is everywhere. If you're creating content, you're just creating more of that stuff that's free and available, and a little bit of Googling can get you whatever you need. But design is what makes it accessible and practical and valued and wisdom. So whatever you're creating, make it beautiful. And I'm going to give you 3 people who really influenced my sense of how design works and what matters and how it shows up in the Coaching Habit book. And here they are. My guess is you recognize 2 of those names, but let me go through them one by one. James Bond. If you've ever watched the James Bond movie, and let's face it, I'm pretty sure you have, you'll know that they always start with a bang, right? James Bond beating somebody up, or running around, or running towards something, or away from something, or leaping out of something. It always starts with the action. And one of the things that you can be sure of is that whatever you're creating, you start too slow. It's like, edit out the first chapter is the saying in the writing world, because the first chapter is often the thing we use to kind of get started, to wind up, to kind of get ourselves ready. And it's often not that useful to people who are experiencing it. So, I mean, don't take me literally. I'm not just talking about the first chapter writing, whether it's an experience or a PowerPoint design or who knows what, a product, a book. The first bit can probably be lopped off so you get more quickly into the heart of it. Catherine Oliver, she was actually my editor for this book. Seth Godin's editor as well. And we went through 3 rounds around structuring it and then down into the details of it. And what I found was having a really great editor makes all the difference. To somebody who you can trust will get you to the essence of what really matters and will really make the thing you're building flow in the most powerful way. You know, I fancied myself as a pretty good writer, but what was surprising for me was just how quickly and how influential Catherine as an editor helped me shape this from a bit flabby to being a really taut piece of writing. And then Albert Einstein, I mean, this is all connected. Albert Einstein's, one of my favorite quotes from him, if you don't know who he is, he's a scientist, is things should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. And one of the things I'm proudest about the book is that there's just no flab to it. It is just all good, practical, useful stuff. It drives me crazy when I read business books in particular, which are, you know, one idea scraped thinly over 220 pages. I'm like, make everything count. And one of the things that as you look at your project, whatever you're working on, and you apply the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, which is like 20% of the thing delivers 80% of the value, is what's that 20% and how do you get rid of as much of all the other stuff around it so that you've got the essential, because the essence is what's going to really drive the impact. Okay, 3 lessons down. We've covered Kenny Rogers, we've covered Gollum, we've covered Sir Jonny Ive. So who's lesson 4? Well, this comes from the world of rugby, the world of sport, the All Blacks team. New Zealand's famous rugby union team. They are, in many ways, the most successful team ever in sport. Their winning percentage is something like 85%. Very frustrating as an Australian because they keep beating Australia, my team, in that. But one of the things I love about the All Blacks is their focus on their team ethos. You know, if you become selected as an All Black, which is huge in New Zealand, you know, you're expected to leave the reputation of the All Black jersey a little better than you found it. Such a great call to the collective rather than individuals. And of course they have their individual stars for sure, but truthfully it's the team that the All Blacks is all about. And you know, when you're an author, you are kind of the individual star. You know, there's my name showing up on the cover of the book there. But the truth is, there's a huge team behind me that's helped create the coaching habit. If I show you just some of the names that show up on the acknowledgements page, you know, page 2, the Jesse and Megan, these great publishing consultants, Peter, the award-winning Canadian designer who did the cover and the inside, Robert, our box of crayons designer, Catherine, the editor I've talked about, Lindsay and Elizabeth, our researchers who bring some of the psychology and behavioral economics behind the questions into life, Judy, our copy editor, Mark, who gave me the subtitle, the draft readers I've already talked about, the whole box of crayons. There's a lot of people who made this book what it is. And one of the things that I really noticed this time around for me was that I built a team that was professional rather than amateur. And I hold myself accountable for this, but in the past, you know, I have built teams that were a bit amateurish, in part because of my need to stay in control. I'll kind of do it all myself, in part because you know, I thought it's cheaper, easier, faster. In part, it's also because I'm like, I won't hold them to the standard I really expect. I'll just hope they'll get it done. This time round, we got really clear on the standard. We really held firm until it became the book that we wanted it to be. And that's why I'm so excited about this book, which is, this is as good a book as I could possibly have created. And by I created it, I mean the team created it. I contributed, I wrote it, but they really shaped it into the beautiful object and useful book that it is now. So as you build your team, who are you building around you? Because you need a team around you. And are you getting the best possible team? So here they are. Here are the 4 lessons from Kenny: know when to quit; from Gollum, stay on the path; Jonny, make it beautiful; and the All Blacks, build the best team around you. And, you know, I want to give you a bonus lesson here, a really bonus reading, if you like. When I was researching and preparing for this webinar, it reminded me of this book, Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. He's the president of Pixar. And he does such a nice job in this book of speaking about some of these themes. How do you stay creative? How do you make the most of your people? How do you have the discipline to create something that's really great rather than okay-ish? So if you're looking to learn more, I'd really encourage you to pick this up. You'll enjoy it, I'm sure. Okay, almost done, but don't go yet. What I'd like you to do is write down the 2 critical ahas from me. If you don't write these down, you will not remember much about this webinar. So if there are only 2 things you could remember, what feels most useful and most valuable to you now? And take the insight and turn it into an action for me. What are you going to do differently as a result of this webinar? What's one action you will take? Even better, one action you'll take in the next day or so, next 24 hours. And then one of these actions might be one of these. One is connect with me back on LinkedIn. As I said, I'm the only Michael Bungay Stanier there. And then just to wave the flag one more time about the book, The Coaching Habit, comes out February 29th, 2016. We'll have a launch week, so the first week of March. We'll get some bonuses that you can only get in that week. So, you know, keep an eye out for that. And if you want more information about it, go to thecoachinghabit.com and you'll read up all about it. Like I say, this is a book for anybody who's a manager, a leader, who wants to influence those around them, who wants to work less hard and have more impact.